corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Shout out to our friends at Teamsters Local 705 in Chicago. As we speak, big rally going on there. The working class fighting back against corporate greed. Senator Bernie Sanders in town at the local. Also, Teamsters President Sean O'Brien and our good friend Sarah Nelson from the Flight Attendants Union rallying the faithful. And look, bringing the reality of the message that, the last 50 years, there has been an enormous, massive redistribution of wealth in this country. From the people who actually work for a living to those folks at the very top who the hardest day's labor they do is moving money from one pocket to the other. And we have got to, in this moment especially, as we're being told, the inflation's our fault. Remember, it's your fault because Joe Biden gave you that $1,400 and you're spending it wrong. Evidently, this is what they're telling us because you now have a little bit of income. You have a little bit of, it's your fault. And what I'm seeing is price gouging. What I'm seeing is corporate America taking advantage of a situation to line their pockets. And it's about time somebody, look, I've been calling for Joe Biden. I've been calling for the administration to do more of what he did in Philadelphia the other day. Good on Bernie, good on Teamsters President Sean O'Brien and our friend Sarah Nelson to get out there and say, look, it's time to start fighting back and start pushing to get us into November. Because look, if the narrative sticks that the Republicans keep throwing out there that Joe Biden's causing this price gouging, causing this inflation, causing this corporate greed, Democrats are going to get shellacked. Now understand, they've been trying. They've been trying to do things on prescription drugs, trying to do things on education, on healthcare spending, on all kinds of things. And the party of no ideas, no policy, no direction, our grand old party folk. They're happy to do nothing, to allow the economy to tank, to allow prices to go through the roof, to allow wages to get eroded by inflation. They're perfectly happy because politically this benefits them. So the hope is rally the faithful, get people out to vote, and make them pay for doing nothing in these moments when people are struggling. So I just want a quick shout out there to those folks as they are heading out of that big rally. Good on you guys. So the big news today. Did you watch the hearing? Did you pay attention to the hearing? And what's been interesting through the 3 hearings thus far, we haven't heard from any partisan Democrat witnesses, have we? These have been all the very best people. These have been all of Trump's the best people. They are turning on him in a big way. Now remember, he only surrounded himself with the very best people. And these are the most conservative voices in America right now, coming out and saying, hey, look, we told him. He knew he did this on his own. It wasn't us. We were team normal. Now, there are a couple of really important lines that came out today that I think every American needs to know. And good on retired Judge J. Michael Ludig. The good judge said Donald Trump and his allies are a clear and present danger to American democracy. I heard him say that. Now, this is not some hippie liberal judge. This is a very conservative judge that a lot of these people clerked for at one point or another. And I remember during the 4 years of the former guy's term saying those exact words, that Donald Trump's a clear and present danger to our democracy. What they are doing is a clear and present danger to the future of this country. And I remember having conservatives, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're saying that about our president. He's the best thing ever. He's fabulous. He's terrific. No. He's a clear and present danger to the future of this country. And as Judge Ludig said, a stake was driven through the heart of American democracy on January 6, 2021. And our democracy today is on a knife's edge. They're not going to stop. Now, he took this opportunity, and if you watch the hearing, and I hope you did, and I hope you go back and look at it, because it was long, it was lengthy, it was. I'll be honest, it wasn't riveting TV for those who want constant action. There were no explosions, but there was a lot of sledgehammers being hit on people's heads. But in a kind of lengthy constitutional seminar kind of way. He was slow, he was methodical, he was wordy, but the bombs coming out of his mouth were enormous. He said at one point that he would have laid his body across the road before he had let Mike Pence overturn the 2020 election based on the historical precedent that they were trying to ram through. This is somebody of principle. This is somebody of who believes in our Constitution. Now, he went on in a very long explanation that everyone in this country needs to know that what Trump and the very best people were doing was this, and what the plan was to overturn our election, and it needs to be front and center. He was very clear. There is a clear and present danger. There it is, and it's not just about 2020. It's about the future. They will attempt to overthrow and overturn the 2024 election. And I would argue they're already doing that. They're already working on that before the first ballot is cast. They're spending millions of dollars on poll workers, not the poll watchers, the poll workers. They're getting those folks in there to be hyper partisan. We've got real problems. And this, a lot of this for me goes back to John Roberts. And our Chief Justice has got a legacy problem that he's going to have to deal with, because when he said, we're going to call balls and strikes, all of the decided law that they overturned, the Voting Rights Act, when they did away with pre-clearance and they just took a butcher knife to the Voting Rights Act, may have gone too far there, John. Now, J. Michael Ludig, the former federal judge, said that had Trump succeeded in getting getting Pence to do his dirty work and declare Trump the winner, or go along with this scheme, this would have been the first constitutional crisis since the founding of the Republic. And he's not wrong. But this is what they wanted. Now, understand, one of the things that they did lay out is Trump knew this was a far-fetched scheme. They knew that this wasn't going to happen. They knew that this wasn't going to work, but they were willing to do it anyway. They were willing to create the chaos. They were willing to put people's lives in danger. They were willing to put the state of our nation in danger for their gain. Because it's always been about Trump. It's always been about him. It's never been about us. It's never been about the working people of this country. It's never been about the future of our nation. It's never been about anything other than one guy. And we've always known that. And what's really interesting, is you look at all of the people who were asking preemptively for pardons. We now find out that John Eastman, the attorney for Trump, who came up with this scheme, is there a list going around of preemptive pardons? Because I'd like to get my name on that, please. We now find out that He didn't get one either because they were never getting them. The only people I believe who got pardoned by Trump were people who had dirt on Trump. The kind of people that could have taken him down, like Roger Stone. Why are we hearing nothing about Roger Stone yet? Now, there were some interesting things that did come out as well, and I want to hear your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. If you watched the hearing today, what your thoughts were on this. But one of the things that was new to me. Now, understand, I knew Pence went down to the parking area. I knew he was kind of trapped in there. There was the story that his ID card didn't work. They wanted to push him in the car to get him out of there so that they could take him who knows where, maybe under the mountain somewhere, in Denali National Park, in Alaska, so he'd never be heard from again so they could hatch their scheme. He refused to go. He refused to get into the car. They were 40 feet. The lynch mob was 40 feet away from him. I didn't know that it was that close. We were 40 feet away from a constitutional crisis. 40 feet away from the end of our republic. I mean, stop and think about what would have happened, because there's no question in my mind, had one of those Oath Keeper, MAGA hat wearing Nimrods gotten a hold of him, he would be swinging from those gallows. There is no question in my mind. And I don't think there was any question in any of the people who testified. Greg Jacobs, his former counsel, testified, saying, look, the vice president doesn't have the authority to reject this slate of elections. Can't do this stuff. Went on some weird kind of moment that I thought was very bizarre, that, when I guess he said he called Pence and he said when he can't wait to go to heaven, to meet the framers, to tell them that the work that they did putting our Constitution together is genius. But there is one sentence I'd like to talk to you a little bit about. And that's the one dealing with the vice president in this situation. Just one sentence, just one sentence there, Greg. And how do you know you're going to heaven? But this is kind of a weird kind of moment, because the left wants to make Pence some kind of hero, and I'm not there. He did his job. One of the things that Ludig brought up and that came out in the hearing is you think about from the beginning of our republic until this moment, no vice president has ever done this, and it came up. If this were possible, do you think Al Gore could have gavelled himself the ability to be president? And then why didn't it? Well, because you can't do it. And that democracy meant more than just one person. And I would argue, well beyond that, we're a different country than we were in 2000. And in a completely different country. Now, the fun, Donald Trump wants equal time. He's now come out, he went out on Truth Social, he's demanding equal time. And I'm tending to agree. I want Donald Trump to have equal time. As long as it's under oath, I want him to come out and have as much time as he wants to plead his case, to tell us what he was doing, when he was doing it, how he was doing it, and the decisions that he was making. But it's got to be under oath. He's got to swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help him God. Hand on the Bible. In front of somebody wearing one of those dresses, one of the robes, with the power to throw him in jail when he does lie, because this is the GOP, the gang of prevaricators. They are the lying party right now. You look at this stuff and it's amazing. Now, I agree with Benny Thompson, who said, look, Trump knew it was illegal. He knew it was wrong. And we're fortunate Mike Pence had courage on January 6th to do the right thing. Liz Cheney said, Mike Pence did his duty. President Trump unequivocally did not. Now, the question is, are people going to hear that? Will MAGA world hear this? Understand, all the people who have testified, either on a video deposition or sat in those chairs today or the past hearings, these have been all the best people. These were the MAGA folks. These were all the best people. These were all of Trump's folks. This is them. There are no lefties out there. There are no Democrats there. These are Trump's people turning on him. 1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. Want to hear your thoughts. Something from today's hearing grab your attention. I want to hear it. Quick break, right back after this. If you're just joining us, make sure you grab the podcast. Never miss an episode. Share with your friends. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff. And if you're coming out of that Teamsters 705 meeting, make sure you're registered to vote, and we begin to hold those folks accountable. Good on you. Back after this. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. You know, generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. Let's go to line 1. We got Christopher in Chicago. Christopher, what's on your mind, brother?
How you doing, Rick?
I'm good. What's going on?
I'm just listening to this show trial they got going on TV, and I just want to say nobody's going to get indicted.
You don't think so? You don't
Trump,
think asking for all the transcripts, and you don't think and no one's going to get indicted? You don't think?
No.
Okay.
Because what comes with an indictment? Cross-examination and discovery.
Okay.
So that means they got to put Nancy Pelosi under oath and all the rest of the people that have the other side of this, Ray Epps and all that stuff. So I don't think there's going to be any indictments, and D.C. is going to protect D.C. whether you're a Republican or a Democrat.
I hope you're wrong. I think there has to be some accountability here. What we're seeing is
what would
every voice.
Hold
on, Chris. Hold on. Every voice that we're seeing today, every voice that we've seen for the last 3 hearings, have been the very best people. They've been Trump's people. These are the people who are in the rooms. These are the people saying he knew what was going on. He chose a different path. There are no Democratic voices here.
I drive a truck for UPS.
Okay.
And people are worried about $5 gas in their groceries. They're not really worried about this trial. Nobody's paying attention. It's in the past. I don't want Trump to run. I love President Trump, but I don't want him to run again. He's too old. All these people in Congress are too old. We need younger people.
So do you care about the state of do you care about the rule of law and the state of democracy? Do you care about the right to vote? Would you care if Al Gore would have been able to do this in 2000?
I love all that stuff.
Okay, so then you should want this to happen.
You
should want this to happen, and you should want all of that stuff that you put there to be out in the light, and you should want that stuff to be exposed.
Okay, so we went through Russia collusion, 2 impeachment hearings, the Clintons and all their stuff. Our government is corrupt, whether it's Republican or Democrat. We got to stop saying I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. They're all poison. They're killing the country.
Okay, all right, Chris.
All of them.
I appreciate your thought, man. Good stuff. Thanks for the call. Let's go to, who do we got? We got Alice on line 3. Let's go over to Alice. How we doing, Alice? What's on your mind? You there, Alice? I guess Alice is gone. I guess she went to the restaurant. But no, I mean, this is one of these kind of moments. And look, you're going to get that kind of despair where you go, they're all corrupt. Look, we can do a couple of things at once. And this is the reality. Yeah, gas prices are high. We've got to deal with that. Inflation's high. We got to deal with that. There's a lot of problems. Absolutely. We're always going to have a lot of problems. Without question. Going to happen. But these are crimes. These are things that have to be investigated. We have looked into the Clintons upside down and backwards. We have looked into all of those allegations upside down and backwards. And just because right-wing blathering radio keeps feeding it to us like outrage candy that we have to consume doesn't mean it's still what's important in this moment. What's important right now is I got a federal judge, a conservative federal judge, saying that this guy's a clear and present danger, that our democracy was on the brink of disaster. There was a constitutional crisis at our doorstep. We were 40 feet away from hanging a vice president. That should scare every person. It's that simple. Alice, you there?
I'm here.
What's on your mind?
I was thinking during parts of the hearing today, I was thinking, a lot of us knew these things that they were going over. And again, I'm going to reiterate. I think that about 75% of us care about it. And then we have the conservative bunch who, as an earlier caller stated, they're more worried about other things. And what they don't realize is that it's all intertwined and goes hand in hand.
Yep.
But I was also happy to see today that Jenny Thomas's name was coming up a bit more. And they're thinking about inviting her to talk, I guess.
And what I love about it is she's ready for it. You go, Karen. I'm hoping she comes forward. I hope she puts her hand on the Bible too. Look, at the end of the day, I'm for transparency and accountability. I want them all to put their hand on the Bible, swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, in front of the person with the robe, and be accountable. See, this is the difference between me and my conservative friends. I want that. I welcome that. I demand that. That is our system. It's what we should all want. It's what the kind of accountability that we've desperately needed. If you're going to complain that it's just a big swamp, this is the way forward. Poo-pooing it away and saying no one's paying attention. Well, clearly I'm paying attention, and I'm hoping others are as well. Just because you're not doesn't mean not everyone is. Any final thoughts, Alice?
Yes. What I wanted to say, which would go along with what you said, was I don't care if they're Republican. I don't care if they're Democrat. I don't care if they're independent or the Communist Party. If they committed a crime, I want them held accountable.
Yep.
But you have a good evening.
Thanks, Alice. Appreciate it. And in the Nancy Pelosi thing, I love when people throw her name out there. What did Nancy Pelosi do on January 6th? Oh, Nancy Pelosi didn't call the Capitol Police. What's interesting about that is not her job. And this is where the blathering class knows that we actually don't understand how the system works. It's not her purview. There is a committee in Congress that's their job. So it was somebody else's responsibility. But she's the lightning rod. She's the one that we go after. But if it would make you happy to have her under oath saying it's not my job, okay. It was the responsibility of X, Y, and Z, and then we should go after them and why that didn't happen. Because I, too, want to know, why weren't there more Capitol Police? Why wasn't the National Guard called? I want to know those things. And you should, too, Chris. I appreciate the call, buddy. Good talking with you. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, our good friend Sarah Burris is going to be here to share some thoughts on the hearings and some other top stories over at Raw Story. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1918. That was the day Eugene V. Debs, leader of the Socialist Party, gave his legendary anti-war speech in Canton, Ohio. The speech, for which he would eventually be arrested, tried, and convicted under the Espionage Act. Though he avoided explicitly criticizing World War I or President Wilson, he made clear his views. He gave the speech at a park near the jail where Charles Baker, Charles Rutenberg, and Alfred Wagenacht, 3 prominent socialists, were being held on Espionage Act-related charges. Debs noted, quote, "It is extremely dangerous to exercise the constitutional right of free speech in a country fighting to make democracy safe in the world." Debs was defiant. He unloaded his rage against the judicial system and the conviction of socialist leader Kate Richards O'Hare for her anti-war views. He railed against the suppression of Max Eastman's socialist press and the ongoing persecution of socialists Tom Mooney and William Billings. Debs briefly reviewed the history of wars in Europe and made the following observation, saying, quote, "The master class has always taught and trained you to believe it is your patriotic duty to go to war and to have yourselves slaughtered at their command. But in all the history of the world, you, the people, have never had a voice in declaring war. The working class, who fight all the battles, the working class, who make the supreme sacrifices, the working class, who freely shed their blood and furnish the corpses, have never yet had a voice in declaring war or making peace." For this, he was convicted of advocating disloyalty and draft resistance and sentenced to 10 years in prison. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
It's over. Biden's numbers are in the ditch. Democrats are doomed, called the priest. These are Democrats talking. Even before November's congressional elections are run, many conventional-thinking Democratic operatives are surrendering to a presumed Republican sweep. You don't need a political science degree to know that if you start out announcing that you'll lose, chances are you will. After all, who wants to vote for a party that shows no fighting spirit, no confidence in the appeal of its own ideas? What's happening here is that the party's top leaders have decided their candidates can't win in rural areas and smaller factory cities, so they've quit trying. Worse, they blame the voters, claiming that Trumpism, Fox News BS, and culture war nonsense have poisoned the minds of people, quote, out there. Thus, party leaders have retreated from the countryside to focus entirely on big urban areas. Democratic congressional leaders even killed their rural outreach programs, and the party's chairman in 2018 meekly declared, "You can't door knock in rural America." Actually, sir, you can. And if you choose to abandon this working-class constituency, surprise, it will abandon you. Worse than failing to campaign along America's dirt roads and factory streets, national Democrats have actively been pushing corporate policies that have ravaged families living there, including trade scams sucking out union jobs, shamefully bailing out Wall Street bankers who crashed our real economy while ignoring millions of devastated workaday people, and doing nothing about the corporate-caused farm depression still ripping across our land. Washington Democrats have largely betrayed this vital constituency. This is Jim Hightower saying, did party poobahs think voters wouldn't notice or care how they're being treated? If we want them back on our side, then let's go to them and get back on their side.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Check out our website, thericksmithshow.com. Jenny Thomas, wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, has come out and said that, hey, you know, she's going to agree to testify. She's going to be interviewed, not testify. She said she actually can't wait to clear up misconceptions. She's looking forward to talking to the January 6th committee. Are you buying that? Do you believe that? Do you think that's going to really happen? Do you think the wife of a Supreme Court justice is dumb enough to go under oath in front of a congressional committee? Do you think she's really that stupid? Oh boy, wouldn't that be? I'm all in favor of it. Cannot wait. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on Janae and all of that, our good friend Sarah Burris, reporter over at Raw Story, rawstory.com, the website. Sarah, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, happy Thursday. Happy third hearing day.
So, what do you make of Ginny and her? I can't wait to clear up the misconceptions.
She's so full of crap. There's no way. I mean, if I was her lawyer or her husband, there's no way that I would let her appear in front of the committee, unless it wasn't under oath, right? Like, and I would say too, the other piece of this is, I get that everybody wants to hear from Ginny Thomas. I want to hear from Clarence Thomas. Like, I want to be able to ask him, who did you talk to? Did John Eastman talk to you? Is there truth to this rumor that you were screaming, that you and Roberts were screaming back and forth at each other? You know, and who else would have known about that? Because that could have come from Ginny Thomas. You know, there's a lot of stuff that I think we should learn, you know, about what Thomas knew, particularly before that vote on the case of whether to turn over, you know, documents or not.
Yeah, I mean, is it maybe Ginny Thomas is going to be the new Yoko, you know, the one that breaks up the Supreme Court?
Oh my God, that would be so funny. You know, that's the thing though, is of all the people on the Supreme Court who have such an obvious conflict of interest, and I don't understand why John Roberts is not stepping in here. If he's supposed to be the Chief Justice who, you know, presides over this thing, does that not mean that he has any kind of authority to be like, why don't you sit this one out, bro?
Yeah, no, it's very bizarre. Now I'm looking at this, and you know, one of the things that I've recently found out that I didn't know before, and it's probably my fault for not knowing, is that Ginny Thomas was I guess in a cult before. Is this accurate? And that went through some deprogramming. So this really explain a lot about, you know, the hyper Tea Party stuff, the Q stuff. There's a lot explained here.
So it's super interesting. It's a cult that's one of those kind of self-embetterment or embettering things where it's like, oh, I'm gonna you know, go to these seminars and stuff, and it's gonna teach me how to be you know, more confident or whatever. But it kind of incorporated this sort of multi-level marketing scheme to it too, where it was like you go to these seminars and you learn about yourself and whatever, and then you bring somebody else in with you the next time, and the more people you bring into it, the more you rise up in the priority of people and the fame of the group or whatever.
Because nothing says self-esteem like Ponzi schemes.
Right, exactly. That's the thing, though, is it's like, if this was an organized religion, if it had a religious component to it, where it was under a specific religion, we would be calling this a cult. But it sort of skirts under the radar because it's not. And what is interesting to me is that, you know, you're not going to get like a narcissist like Trump who's going to be a part of a cult, because their obsession is themselves. But that sort of that Donald Trump inner circle movement, the way that people have described it, the way that Michael Cohen has talked about it, is it's very cult-like. And I'm sort of fascinated by this idea of, you know, how Trump sort of used an emotional kind of manipulation for his people to pit them against each other and then promote them publicly. It sounds sort of like the bizarre thing that Ginny Thomas is a part of. It's just more political and sanctioned by the Republican Party. So you fold the QAnon stuff in with that, and it's like, oh, this makes sense now.
Yeah, I mean, I look at Trump, and you know, you listen to some of the things that he said, and look, you know, I've said a bunch of times, the blind squirrel found the nut, and talking about manufacturing, talking about how bad our trade policies are, and I was with him on that. The idea of, you know, reinvigorating our manufacturing base. Granted, he did nothing for 4 years, but you know, I was there. Everything else was just throwing people under the bus. And what's interesting is watching these hearings. These are all Trump people. These are all the very best people that he surrounded himself. These are all the cultists. This is the clan that is, you know, finally, you know, kind of coming to light. And I wonder how many people, you know, I'm told nobody's watching these hearings, and I've been told repeatedly by the MAGA world that they don't care. But I got to think the more you see MAGA world going, No, you've been duped. You got ripped off for $250 million. As this stuff keeps piling on, that eventually a light bulb has got to go off, and there's got to be an epiphany at some point.
I think what the light bulbs that are going off are the ones that are not necessarily right up next to Donald Trump. Those are obviously some of the people that they lost after Election Day were closer, but a lot of the people that we have seen in this, they're definitely conservative Republicans, but a lot of them are Pence people. Like today, obviously, because it was about Mike Pence, there were just, all of his people. The judge had been, he was like a mentor to John Eastman and to Ted Cruz, which is even more bizarre. So I think we have seen some people who are insider Trump people who probably just complied with a subpoena and maybe didn't know as much. Like it seems like Jason Miller is one of those willful idiots that was basically out of town for several weeks leading into January 6th. And he had some information, but he just ends up looking like an idiot with saying one thing on Fox News and another thing under oath. And so it's weird because these people are, I think that a bunch of them are falling, but I don't think anybody who is, living in their own little QAnon world is ever
you said the important part
come
right
out
there.
Of it.
You said the important part right there. They went on Fox News. They said one thing.
Yeah.
The second they put their hand on the Bible, they swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They did not say what they said on Fox News. They didn't say what they said when they went to the Four Seasons Landscaping press conference. They didn't say what they said when they went to the Gettysburg Hotel to have their sham hearing there. They didn't say all of the things that they were saying on all the conservative outlets and all these fantastical claims of all of this voter fraud and all of this made up fantasy stuff. They told the truth. And that's what MAGA world needs to hear because they bought all the fantastical claims that they heard on blathering right-wing talk radio, and they didn't hear what was put in front of the people wearing the robes.
And that's one of the things that I've been so frustrated about, the way that they were painting Mike Pence today, because, the chairman, Thompson, basically started the whole thing talking about Mike Pence's courage. Well, we learned today that Mike Pence's so-called courage didn't happen for a month after Donald Trump started probing him for this thing. So for over a month, Mike Pence knew that there was this crazy, basically the coup plot afoot, and that he was being pressured to do this thing on the 6th, and people were trying to justify it to him. And this idea that I think Mark Short, they showed some videos of Mark Short where he was like, he never wavered, he stood strong. And it's like, if he never wavered, then why was he calling a whole bunch of legal people to ask them, oh crap, what do I do here?
Why are you asking Dan Quayle?
Right.
And I thought Chris Christie had a funny line. He was on Fox News and they asked him what he would say on to Pence if they shared a debate stage, and he said, it looks like you're better now. Your neck was on a hinge for 4 years and it just nodded up and down from January 20th to January 6th, as you know, 2021. So I'm glad to see you're better. And that's kind of a funny line, but screw Chris Christie too, because where was he?
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is it's not just Chris Christie and all of these people who have testified. Where were they between Election Day and January 6th? But where were they during the impeachment hearings too? Because all of these people said nothing for months and months. It wasn't until Bill Barr's book came out. He went like a year between when he said something to the AP about, this is a legit election, to when his book came out. That's when he told everything.
And screw Bill Barr too.
I'm so sick of these people. Yep. And I think honestly, like if we could indict Donald Trump, that would be great. But one of the things some of the members that I talked to today were saying is they want to indict everybody else who was in the circle who was enabling him.
Yeah, no, there have to be some indictments that come out of this at some point. They're due, right?
I would hope so, right? I mean, I think there's something seriously wrong with our system if we're not indicting people just because they're in fancy suits.
Yeah, you're listening to The Rick Smith Show here with Sarah Burris, reporter at Raw Story. You got a question, comment, something on your mind? Give us a call, 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Chime in with a thought. Now, Trump says he wants equal time. I am all in favor of Donald Trump getting equal time, just as long as it's under oath, as long as we gavel in. Put your hand on that book that they claim to have read and they understand and they believe in. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help them that God they seem to love and think they say they love. And then tell the truth to him and all of us. I'm in favor of it. In fact, I would give him not just equal time, but double time. Say whatever he needs to say.
I think that would be amazing. It would be so funny. I think too, though, there's no way that his lawyers are ever going to let him do something like that. But I want the committee to call his bluff on this. Like, I think that the committee should be like, hey, we saw your note that you want to speak out and have equal time on this. Why don't you come up to the Hill? We'd love to welcome you to the committee. We'll flip on the cameras and, call his bluff on it. And if he's like, and tries to walk it back after that, then that's on him.
Yep.
But I say, hell yeah, give him the option.
Give him the time. And this is where I think there might be a chance of there being some indictments. As the story came out today, the Department of Justice is going, hey, we want the transcript. So am I to understand that there hasn't been any cooperation or coordination between the committee and the Department of Justice?
So not until this point. But what has happened is that the Justice Department basically sent the committee a letter yesterday. And we're like, hey, y'all, we want all your transcripts. And I think the chairman made some comment like, not yet. And I wonder how much of that is like, y'all, we're in the middle of this hearing right now. Like, we got some stuff to do. Can you just hold off for a couple of minutes? Or if it's about, like, we don't want any of this stuff to leak out. What Joe Lofgren told us today, though, is, of course, we're going to give them everything. We're going to give them every box, every document, every interview, every video that we've got, and then some. It's not. I think it's a big deal that the DOJ is saying, "Hey, we want this." That's the first step to them saying, "Oh yeah, we are actually interested in this thing." So that's a good thing.
It is a good thing. Let's see how that works itself out. Let's go to the phones. We've got Bob in Brookfield on line one. Bob, how are we doing tonight?
Pretty good, thank you.
You got something on your mind?
I like the show a great deal. Yeah, something I wanted to say is I would be surprised if there are going to be any indictments, and especially up at the high end where Trump is. And the reason why is this. It's because the Trumpanistas, the people who support Trump and want to live in his world, have come to realize or come to believe that democracy is what our country revolves around. Everything is democracy. It gives us our freedoms, our liberties, democracy. Well, you know what? Democracy is not giving us anything that we want. We want white supremacists. We want people of color to be lesser in value than the white people are. We want the white people to control everything, to have everything like it used to be in the old days. That's why we want to take our country back. Democracy doesn't work for us. It doesn't give us what we want. But Trump says he's going to give us everything that we want. So we don't care anything about how disgusting and vile he is, how criminal he is, how anything he is. It doesn't matter. He's going to give us what we want. And so we're going to support him, and we're going to go with him. Even though you can prove to us that he's stealing our money. So what? It's an investment in my future. That's why these people are not going to be swayed by all of this hearings. You could have Trump on a video saying anything and everything, every crime he's ever committed, and they won't care.
Yeah, but what do you say to that, Sarah? I mean, he's not wrong.
No, I think Bob is top of the perfect way of putting it. I think that you're not going to sway a lot of these folks. The thing that I think you will be able to sway is the Justice Department. And we might lose Congress in 2020, but we've got the Justice Department until 2024. Unless they obviously try to impeach Joe Biden. But even that, they're not going to make that through the Senate, right? No matter how many Republicans get elected in November, they're not going to be able to pass that in the Senate.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting couple of years. So you got anything else, Bob?
Well, just one other thing. When Reagan walked in the White House, the rich people, the Republicans, corporate America realized if they could do three things, that they could control the minds of the American people, and therefore they could get anything from them that they wanted. All they have to do is find the right way to approach them. And those three things are to keep people uneducated, uninformed, and living in fear. And that's what they've done. They constantly destroying the public education system. Reagan took civics out of the curriculum, so people don't even know how the government works.
Yeah, now you're
people uninformed. So they took over all of the radio stations with Fox News propaganda network on television and on radio, and keep people living in fear of each other, fear of the government, fear of the other, those people. The reason why you don't have anything that you want is because of those people of this religion, those people of this race, those people of this color. I'll save you from those people. Just vote for me.
Yep, you're right, Bob. Appreciate it, man. Great call.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much. No, look, that's the sad reality. And here in Pennsylvania, where I'm at, you're seeing the same kind of rhetoric that Bob's laid out. I mean, we've got Benito Mastriano, who's running on the same kind of line. There's no economic agenda. There's no future there. It's just who do we hate and who do we go after?
And I think at some point you're going to have to start answering questions about the economy, right? Like, this is the one thing that every pundit in the world and everybody on Fox News has been saying is, this election can't be about January 6th. It can't be about, our democracy. All of these things that we as lefties want to talk about. They want to talk about the economy. The problem is that means that Republicans also have to talk about the economy, and they have no ideas. There are no solutions on their end. It's sort of like the same thing with Obamacare. Like, they're going to repeal, but there is no replacement. So I think once we get closer to the election, I have faith that some Democrats will be able to start talking about those issues in a logical way that may save their seats.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out because, you got to talk about the economy and something's got to get done. And I like the fact that Biden finally is doing something. I love the fact that you got Bernie Sanders in Chicago tonight with Sean O'Brien of the Teamsters and our friend Sarah Nelson of the flight attendants talking about, hey, there's been a massive redistribution of wealth and getting people organized and saying, look, this is what's going on and beginning to fight back. We need that desperately.
Yeah, we do. And I think all of that trickles down to even oil prices, right? Like, gas is high, but you see, these corporations making so much money, and instead of investing and hiring more people to pump more oil, they're doing stock buyback. So all of it has to do with so much corporate greed.
Yeah, I mean, we're in this weird spot. I also wanted to get to a couple other things that you've got. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show here with Sarah Burris. She's a reporter over at Raw Story. Make sure you check out the work that she does there at rawstory.com. You got a piece on the Proud Boys. There is a plan. There was a plan that they had, the 1776 returns plan, full document. It kind of laid out the whole scheme there. I mean, are you as surprised as I am the amount of treason that was documented, the memos, the videos? I mean, I think they were getting ready for the full-length documentary movie.
I think they were, but I will say the thing about that document is that it is probably the most important thing that happened this week, and nobody is talking about it. This is not just a planning document that Enrique Tarrio's girlfriend handed over to him. This is a document that basically outlined what happened down to the time. They even had like a schedule where they were going to have people, be staged and ready at 1:00. And then at 1:22, they were going to be ready to go. And by 1:30, they were, going to start the attack. And that's pretty much about the time, like within a 15-minute span of when the timeline happened. It even goes through a whole thing about how they want to block traffic with semis, which is basically what's been happening in Washington for, with the Trump truckers who came through over the COVID stuff. All of those things. I would say too that the trucker deal, their big thing about the truckers were they wanted to be able to block traffic so that police couldn't get to the Capitol.
Yeah.
which is another thing where you're just like, oh my God, how is this not a bigger deal? This is the scariest thing I have ever read. And they were talking about being dressed in suits and pretending to be staffers and hiding in the Capitol, after doing their reconnaissance tour the day before, staying in the Capitol and hiding there so that they could be able to let people in on the afternoon of the 6th. It's just like, man.
You bring up reconnaissance. Now, we saw the video and all this stuff from Barry Loudermilk, and you've got a piece with Representative Mary Gay Scanlon of Pennsylvania, who said, this is no way to run a country. And you go, yeah, it's no way to run a country to have, representatives giving reconnaissance tours art tours of hallways and stairwells. I'm still stuck on, I didn't do it. Well, maybe I did it. Well, it wasn't a big deal. It was nothing really important. Okay, well, it was kind of important. I'm just kind of in this weird spot where nobody wants to hold this guy or any of them accountable.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a weird place.
The thing that blew my mind, too, and that Representative Scanlon said is that when she observed a member giving a tour, it wasn't Loudermilk. It was another member. So there are other members out there that she basically said that, we're seen giving these same kind of tours. And what she thought whenever she saw them was, oh, this is probably a new member who just doesn't know, we're not having tours right now because of COVID. It's probably his family, yada, yada. But then after the 6th, everybody was like, oh, gee, maybe this is actually a serious thing. And so they filed, a report with the Capitol Police, and they didn't even allege that this was some kind of reconnaissance effort. They just basically said these members were hosting, tours in the Capitol when they weren't supposed to be. And the Republican Party filed an ethics complaint against them for making that claim. And it turns out we had the videos the whole time.
No, I'm not surprised. Let's go to the phones. We got Gordon from Florida on line 1. Gordon, you got about a minute. What's on your mind, brother? You got a question for Sarah?
Very briefly, first off, Pelosi, regardless of what you think of her views or not, even though it's legal, she should have allowed the people on the commission that McCarthy wanted, because it would have turned out the same outcome. It would have given credibility. Pence was, even though I'm a conservative and love Pence, he was totally right in what he did because the Constitution prohibits him. As far as Trump goes, my mother and I are both conservatives. We think that what he did was very unwise, but not illegal. That Loudermilk character, okay, I don't like him. He doesn't support cutting subsidies. He's a tax and spend liberal. But even the D.C. police have said that what he did was not a reconnaissance mission, and I don't think it was. But I don't really like the guy. He and most of the GOP are tax and spend liberals that don't support student loan bankruptcy. They don't support cutting subsidies. They are tax and spend liberals like
Okay, is that a question?
No, I wanted to offer my opinion.
Okay.
I wanted to offer my opinion on Loudermilk. They no offense against all the drunken sailors that I'm offending, but the GOP and some Democrats are tax and spend liberal. They tax and spend like drunken sailors.
Got it. All right, thanks, Gordon. I appreciate it. No, Gordon's got an interesting point. I mean, there's the view that they didn't do anything illegal. What do you say to that? That nothing that Trump did was illegal. That this scheme wasn't illegal. That there's nothing here. Nothing to see. Move along.
So the last 2 hearings that we've had, the second one and this one were they had Liz Cheney basically giving speeches where she specifically cited the language that is in the statute, that is in the law that Trump broke. And so last one was something about seditious conspiracy. And that whole speech that she gave and that whole hearing was basically about that crime. Today was about basically the attempt to overthrow the government and to stop the government proceeding.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it plays out. But Sarah, I appreciate the time as always. Great stuff. Thanks so much for the time.
My pleasure. Have a good weekend.
You as well. Our good friend Sarah Burris, reporter over at Raw Story. Make sure you check out the work she does. rawstory.com. Gordon, thanks for the call. Again, if you missed any portion of the program, thericksmithshow.com. That's where you go to get the podcast. Never miss a moment.
Nearly 80 million people under heat alerts. That's a lot of hot people.
Another early extreme heat wave shatters records across the U.S. Yellowstone National Park closed due to catastrophic flooding. Plus,
Exxon made more money than God this year.
Gas prices and profiteering hit new record highs.
All of those record highs and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
There was a headline in every website today. Gas now $5 a gallon. And everyone in L.A. went, oh, finally, some good news.
Ain't it the truth? This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, summer barely underway, but already the extreme weather is causing a problem pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, pretty much. Extreme weather is ruining vacations, especially in Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming, which indefinitely closed all entrances and began evacuating some park visitors on Monday after record rainfall caused record flooding and mudslides that washed out roads, at least one bridge, and knocked out power to the park and nearby gateway communities.
So all of Yellowstone National Park closed in the middle of summer tourist season?
Yes. The rest of the nation is broiling. Another early extreme heat event shattered records in the Southwest over the weekend, with Phoenix, Las Vegas, Denver, and California's Death Valley all posting new high temperature records. Texas hit a new record for electricity demand, but its grid did hold. And it's not even peak summer yet. As we go to air, the extreme heat is intensifying and expanding eastward, with temperatures 20 to 30 degrees warmer than average from Minnesota to the eastern seaboard. Wow. So it is a great time to get prepared.
Wow, triple digits I'm seeing in Illinois, Minnesota.
Yep, climate scientists warn that extreme heat waves are growing in frequency and intensity due to global warming. And it matters because excessive heat events cause more deaths in the U.S. than all other weather-related disasters like hurricanes, floods, and tornadoes combined. Public health experts say that early extreme heat waves are especially dangerous because people are not yet acclimated to the rapid onset of high heat and high humidity. Meanwhile, gas prices have hit a new record national average of $5 a gallon, which in turn is fueling inflation. Industry experts agree that there's very little that the Biden administration can do to quickly change the market forces that have caused the surge in gasoline prices that are hitting around the world, not just in the U.S. In remarks Friday at the Port of Los Angeles, President Biden pushed back on the false narratives of the oil industry and Republicans by highlighting the oil industry's record profits and calling for a windfall profits tax.
They have 9,000 permits to drill. They're not drilling. Why aren't they drilling? Because they make more money not producing more oil. The price goes up, number one. And number two, the reason they're not drilling is they're buying back their own stock, which should be taxed, quite frankly, buying back their own stock and making no new investments.
All good points, but Desi Doyen, let me call you out. You said that gas prices are hitting an all-new high. They're not hitting that high. They have been raised to that high by the oil companies.
Excellent point.
And, by the way, Republicans are all in favor of this big oil profiteering. Every Democrat in the House voted in favor of a bill to stop oil and gas profiteering. Every single Republican except 4 voted against it. They like the high prices.
I guess they do. An explosion and a fire at a liquefied natural gas export facility in Freeport, Texas is not helping energy prices. That single facility accounts for more than 20% of U.S. LNG exports and will remain closed for at least 3 weeks. That has further tightened global natural gas supplies, triggering even higher prices. And that's a double whammy for consumers because natural gas is a feedstock for fertilizer. So Russia's invasion of Ukraine has sent both food and fertilizer prices soaring. But high prices are good news for Russia. The New York Times reports that Russia pulled in record revenue from its exports of oil, gas, and coal in the first 100 days of its war in Ukraine.
See, war pays.
But some good-ish news. To cut down on the massive problem of electronic waste, the European Union has agreed to a new law imposing a standard charger for smartphones, tablets, and laptops. And finally, the Biden administration has unveiled the first ever standards for building out a national network of 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations by 2030. The draft regulations establish the ground rules for states to build charging station projects. Among many provisions, the new standards guarantee that every station will be accessible to all EV drivers, regardless of their location, their car brand, or their charging company.
So there's that. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com.
Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, new Economist YouGov poll out. 56% of Americans said that they believe that the country is currently going through an economic recession. I'm not quite sure. There's an actual definition of what a recession is. Not quite sure we're there yet. But, look, if they keep telling you long enough we're in recession, if that's all the messaging we're getting and it's all bad, it's all horrible, well, what do you think you're going to believe? So I'm actually surprised it's only 56% given all the news that we keep hearing. But here to share some thoughts on, are we heading towards recession? Is this as bad as they're making it out? And can there be anything done? These rate hikes, these massive rate hikes, is this gonna help? Is slamming on the brakes going to hurt? Well, that's why I've asked my good friend Mateus Vernengo to come talk with us. Mateus is an economics professor at Bucknell University, also one of my favorite writers on the topic. Mateus, thanks for taking time for us.
Oh, thank you for having me, Rick.
So, 56% think, hey, we're going through the recession right now. Are we technically in recession yet?
So the technically is, the National Bureau of Economic Research definition, it's two quarters of, decrease in GDP. And that obviously we're not. The first semester we did have a slight decrease in GDP. So there are concerns, and obviously the recovery has slowed down. Biden acknowledged that in his talk yesterday or the day before, I don't remember, on that. And certainly the Fed, Powell, hike interest rates because of inflation, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that too. And the Fed suggests that they think unemployment is going to go up. So I've seen a lot of economists thinking that what's coming is, as they call it, a hard landing caused by the Fed, and meaning that we are on our way to a recession at some point, not in the distant future. So that seems to be the general consensus. I'm less sanguine that that's what we're going. So I don't think that necessarily a recession is what will happen. And what seems to me is that there is a lot of the recovery was great, and that's important to be said. I better than I thought it was going to be, in a sense. So the fiscal package that Biden managed to pass in January last year, only with Democratic votes, and then the bipartisan 10 votes, whatever it was, infrastructure bill, they finished a recovery that was very rapid in many ways. Not complete, I would say, but very rapid in terms of unemployment level. Employment not so much, but unemployment level 3.6. Manufacturing jobs came back relatively fast.
Yeah, 600,000.
Yes, so all of that is all of good news, good stuff. So better jobs and whatnot, let alone stuff that during we learned stuff, or we should have learned again stuff during the pandemic, that it's really important. Stuff like, if you give protections to people, through the action of government, through fiscal policy, you cover and spend money so that they can continue to pay rent, and you don't evict them, and you guarantee that they will be able, even if they're not working, with unemployment insurance, that they can buy, the basics to survive. And you protect their ability to, say, work from home and so on and so forth. For those that could afford to do all of those things. poverty rates fell. Yeah. And it was an important element of the pandemic and whatnot. That says of the power of the government and fiscal policy and improving the lives of people. So that was an important thing that happened all during this recovery.
Right, but Mateus, what the argument now is by doing that, by making people's lives better, those poor working class people, we've caused inflation, and this is the argument that I'm getting from people. So help me with this, because I'm being told by not making students pay their student loans back, by not, by letting people have a little bit of savings, a little bit of cushion in their income. That's what's caused this inflation, because they've misused the money by spending it on stuff.
No, fair enough. But before I say that, let me say why the 56%, think we're in a recession. The point that I think it's missing is that this recovery, as good as it was, and with all of these things that I'm going the extra mile and telling you the stuff that normally people don't discuss when they discuss the economy, that there is all of this social good being done with fiscal policy and was done, and we know and we should know and we should use it. But the problem is that it brings us back to a place that was not particularly good before the recession. The pandemic, we have had a war on the working class in this country for like 40 years. And so even if you improve a little bit, the situation is not fantastic. So people are still despondent, they're unhappy. On top of this, you have inflation. But the proof that this is not what's causing inflation is that real wages, the real remuneration of workers has gone down. So this is not a wage price spiral as it was in the 70s, in which, there was inflation, because the cost of oil went up and whatnot, which we have now, the war in Ukraine and whatnot. And, and at that time, back in the 70s, workers, strong unions, they pushed wages up, and certainly there was a wage price spiral. That's not happening now. Wages are losing. So the notion that this is because there is too much demand and workers are making a lot is not defensible. So the reasons for inflation are somewhere else, and the Fed by hiking interest rates, and apparently they're going to do it again in next month. So this is going to be part of a series of increases. Is that we didn't learn the lessons from the 70s, and so we are very likely to at least slow down significantly this recovery. I'm more afraid of the lessons not learned, that we're not going to use fiscal policy in the future. There is a motto people keep saying, and they repeat, I'm fiscally conservative and, socially liberal among more progressive people. And I always say, I think that that's a terrible thing. I mean, we should be socially liberal for sure, but, but fiscally radical, fiscal policy is what tells you whether a government is for the people, for working people or not. It's where they spend the money, and how they tax. So if you tax the wealthy and you spend on the poor, that's a working class, radical government. That's perfectly fine to be done. And we haven't done that in a long while in this country,
Yeah, well, not
so
since
we're going to spend money to save banks or whatever, but not to save,
Yeah, we haven't done that since the socialist days of David Eisenhower.
Yes.
When we built infrastructure and we paid for it, when we had wars and we paid for it, when we paid for college and we paid for it,
GI Bill, stuff like that. Yeah.
And I often say we should be going back to those things. You listen to the Rick Smith Show here with Mateus Fernango, economics professor at Bucknell University. You want to give us a call, 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. You got a question, thought, comment? We want to hear it. We saw some unemployment numbers. Those numbers, I guess, like as you said, we're going to expect more. 229,000 unemployment claims last week. Is this something we're going to see? I know the Fed said we're going to see a little elevation. Should we start preparing for this?
I think so, yes. I think, if they slam on the brakes also, I mean, the other thing, as I said, I think it's not just monetary policy. It's that, there will be paralysis in Congress. So no fiscal bill will ever, pass again during the rest of the Biden administration. I think that the slamming of the brakes, the inflation that will continue, a slowdown of the recovery means that midterms are very unlikely to, allow Democrats to continue passing a more progressive agenda in Congress. So I'm more afraid actually of fiscal policy. Monetary policy, the effect of this hikes in interest rates will be mostly on mortgage and indirectly through the mortgage market, on spending and consumption and credit cards and those things, but it's perhaps smaller than people tend to think. So I don't think that the Fed they're not going to hike it like Volcker back in the 70s. So again, I don't think that this is going to be, the interest rates are negative in real terms. So I don't think that this is brutal. But fiscal policy is not there to help anymore. We use that bullet, and everybody now thinks that we're spending too much. It's not on the right that they think that, because, you know, Republicans will say no to anything that Biden tries to do. But, you know, and I'm not even talking about Manchin and Sinema, and, you know, it's a good chunk of the relatively progressive people in the Democratic Party think we've done too much and we have to stop. So they have been convinced that this debate is within the Democratic Party. I always say, if you look at the people in this debate who say inflation was caused by, you know, supply side things and corporations and whatnot, Robert Reich. Who says it's too much demand and we have to stop it and put the brakes and whatnot, Larry Summers. So the Treasury Secretary of the Clintons and, you know, advisor to Obama. So it's a debate within the Democratic Party. It's not a debate, with the Republicans. The Republicans are out for lunch. You know, they don't participate in this debate. They're talking about, you know, whatever. We've been robbed. The election was robbed and whatnot. But they're not talking about these sort of issues. So
I would argue they're going even worse to the other side now. I saw, you know, Lindsey Graham saying that, you know, they want to start cutting entitlements. That means Social Security. That means Medicare. They want to start slashing and burning, because, hey, we got to tighten the belt. Here comes the A word again.
Yeah, well, that's an old. The Friedman thing. It's the starve the beast. So you know, it's in moments of crisis you can always sort of, you know, let them spend and then spend on whatever, on military and whatnot, and then in times of crisis you go and cut on entitlements. So that's an old strategy. So they always want to cut entitlements and protections to workers and so on and so forth. Again, the lessons of this pandemic is that social spending, you know, does improve the life of people, and that we can afford it, you know, if we want to.
So
and,
solutions then. So let me ask you some solutions, because I've been saying some of the things we should be doing is there's talk of a potential Build Back Better compromise on prescription drug prices, you know, that should be done already. There's talk of something very minor on child care. Nothing on helping families get the $300 that was out there during the pandemic. There's none of the more progressive stuff, but there are some things. Are there policies that can help working families through this period that the Democrats should be pursuing?
I think all of those. So what you said, I think also some reason. I mean, again, it will alienate some people, but some reasonable amount of pardoning of that, particularly of kids that went to community colleges, you know, stuff like that. So policies that you do help, people trained to get jobs, and so. But you know, again, the ability to do that, the window is closing. So they have just a few months. Whether, you know, and I don't know what the compromises are with Manchin and other sort of Democrats for that, but you know, yes, I think that social spending would be something that, you know, would be great. Mind you, what I'm afraid is that the impact of those will be too small to have an electoral effect. So I don't think that that's something that it's in the cards. Also, the global economy in general doesn't look good. So it's not like, even policies in the U.S. improve a little bit, that the global scenario does look particularly good. So things suggest that we will still have supply chain issues and inflation will continue to go on. That means that workers will have wages increasing less than inflation. And so, nobody's happy with that when they go vote.
Yeah, no, it's going to be. You brought up the global community, and I've been seeing reports coming out that it's everywhere. Inflation is everywhere, and we're not even getting hit the hardest. Is that accurate?
Yes, no, I mean they are having, obviously inflation is a global phenomenon, so it wasn't caused by the policies of Biden or or the associated to the pandemic, the recovery from the pandemic. It is the supply chain issues. It is the war and the effects on price of energy. Most of the increases in prices are associated to energy prices. The worst cases are cases, I was born, and although I was raised in Brazil, I was born in Argentina. So Argentina, for example, has very high inflation. We're talking not single digit, we're talking 2 digits. Countries that have, very fragile external economies in which the currency is going, it's runaway depreciation of the currency. So Russia has very high inflation. Argentina has very high inflation. But overall, globally, this is something that it's happening. And and at least I should say, in some places, we don't even know exactly the numbers, because numbers are sort of massage and camouflage, and you don't know exactly what's going on with inflation. So our numbers are at least accurate, and we know what's going on, and that's always something important, so we can have a reasonable discussion. So inflation is here to stay. Mind you, it's not the problem with inflation is not contrary to the issues of employment and social policies and inflation. And it's something that the government, I would say, I didn't say this, but policies that I think are relevant, we should sort of really help to the extent that it's possible, and it's doable. It's trying to pass an increase in minimum wage. So that's an important thing. Trying to create more support for, at the level of the judiciary and whatnot for unionization, because that does affect the ability of workers to maintain their wages up. And that, if your wages are going up, a little bit more inflation, if your wages are going further up than prices, who cares? Yeah. And so inflation is only really matters for the working class, because wages are losing. And that's the fact that it's important. So corporations are winning, workers are losing. That's what matters. That's where the sort of I don't think regulation would solve that short run of corporations. I don't think that that's a solution, or price controls given the circumstances. But obviously, moving in that direction and having the Justice Department moving in that direction is also an important thing. It's something that does not depend on what happens in the Electoral College. So they can do those things. They can be more stringent in the regulation of corporations, and that should be done.
Last question I've got for you. There's a lot of talk of windfall profits taxes. There's a lot of talk of increasing, like you said, the minimum wage, helping unionization. Sanders has got a bill expanding Social Security, getting seniors an extra couple $100. Are these policies that you would get behind?
Oh yes, by all means. I mean, again, on this, I think that I will repeat it. Democrats shouldn't be fiscally conservative. That's a 1990s thing of the Clinton era, fiscally conservative and socially liberal. I think we should be socially liberal and fiscally radical. The radicalism, as you said, of Dwight Eisenhower, going back to an era in which you tax the wealthy, it's tax and spend, tax the wealthy and spend on the poor, and the working class. And that's exactly what we should support in this country.
There you go. Mateus, I appreciate the time. Great talking with you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Our good friend, Mateus Vernango. Love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com, or give us a call, 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Questions, comments, something on your mind? I want to hear it. Also, make sure you download the podcast. If you ever miss a moment, grab it wherever you get your podcasts. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, Pinkerton detectives arrived at job sites across the U.S. to escort workers off the premises. No, it was not a railroad or a coal mine in labor's distant past. It was at the offices of what was once the largest computer seller in the United States. And the year was 2000. Intercom was filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The computer giant had been built on buying computers in large quantities and reselling them. But increasingly, computer manufacturers such as Dell began to sell directly to customers. They eliminated the middleman. Unable to adapt, Intercom's finances were a wreck. They brought in the Pinkertons to usher away employees and change the locks on the office doors. The Pinkertons arrived at the Atlanta office at 2:30. They showed up in Jacksonville at 4. Another former employee recalled his experience, saying on June 16th, they came into the Buffalo office around 5 with Pinkerton security and a locksmith and said basically, you've got 5 minutes to grab your personal belongings and leave the building. The bewildered employees were given few answers. The Pinkertons posted signs with an 800 number on the doors they had just locked. Then, at 4:26 p.m., more than 5,000 employees were sent an email from the company asking them to call that same number. When they did, a recorded message began to explain the events of the day. The employees learned that they would not receive their final paychecks, and they had all been fired. But the news got worse. The message went on, "We advise you begin exploring alternatives for medical and disability insurance." The message also said, Intercom apologizes for the sudden disruption and expresses its appreciation for your dedicated service. Employees were left to scramble for new jobs and insurance without any warning whatsoever. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So it turns out Herschel Walker's got a couple more kids. Who knew? I wonder if he knew. Evidently, he had one child that he's been talking about, Christian, who very, very, very strange situation there. Openly gay, openly homophobic, which is kind of bizarre watching some of his social media posts. But I guess it came out today that he's got 3 sons and a daughter. I guess today that there was an extra couple of kids came out that we didn't know about, that he's never spoken about. Now, the reason this is important, the reason someone cares about this is he's made this kind of the center of his campaign, saying that, the problem with society are fatherless homes. And look, I will agree. Look, I came from a fatherless home. I think it's a problem. I grew up in poverty. That probably shouldn't have had to have, had that not been the situation. So deadbeat dads are something I'm kind of a little harsh on. So I'm going to be a little harsh on Herschel, since evidently nobody's ever heard of these other ones. Now what's weird is I kind of feel bad for Herschel in kind of a weird way, because by running for Senate, we now find out all of the things that the fantasy world that he's been living in all these years, giving these speeches that he seems either it's really the football stuff with the head injuries is serious, or he's deluded, because I guess he claimed he was valedictorian of his high school, wasn't, claimed that he owned a business that no one can find and has never existed, but he ran around saying that. He even lied about going to graduating from college. And it's not even that he graduated, it's he graduated in the top 1%. And I don't know how you graduate in the top 1% when you never graduated. That's kind of interesting. He's been caught lying about being a police officer. He's been caught lying about being an FBI agent. He's just been caught lying about all kinds of stuff. He might make an interesting Republican senator, because I still think he's going to get more votes than he probably should. And this is the problem with our politics right now, because there's so many people who feel hopeless and feel that the whole system's broken and it's all corrupt. And I would argue that this has everything to do with a system that people are running to be little media stars and not to make people's lives better. This is the frustrating part for me in this. I do this because I have a vision that I want to make lives better. Someone asked me the other day, well, tell me your story. And I said, look, I'm just a kid who grew up in the projects. I now live in a neighborhood with doctors and lawyers, and not because I'm particularly smart, not because I'm particularly industrious, but because I work hard and because of my union card. And I want to make sure that there are opportunities for that kid growing up in that place where I lived to have an opportunity to do all the things that I was able to do. To be able to live the kind of life that's going to give them opportunity and hope and a way forward. For me, that's the hope. And I want politicians who are going to think that way. I want people in political office who are going to move us in that direction. Don't you? I want people who know what it's like to have to pump gas and worry about the cost of things. I want people who are going to, I want that, and you should too. Just my thoughts. But this Herschel Walker thing, kind of interesting to me.
Sometimes it is, sometimes not. It depends what else is going on
It's just one of those weird moments. Love to hear your thoughts, though. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Give me your thoughts, questions, comments, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, Austin Linfante is going to be here from Heartland Signal to share some thoughts on what's going on in the Midwest. Back after this. Stick around. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1836. That was the day that the London Working Men's Association was founded. Skilled craftsmen started the organization. William Lovett, a cabinet maker, and a publisher by the name of Henry Hetherington were two of the original founders. Their aim was to promote the rights of the working class. 2 years later, the group drafted the People's Charter. The document outlined a demand for 6 reforms aimed at making the government more inclusive of the working class. One reform was universal suffrage for all males over the age of 21. Another was ending the requirement that members of Parliament hold property, which excluded most British people from standing for elections. The charter also called for the establishment of fairer parliamentary electoral districts, holding of annual elections, and allowing for a secret or anonymous ballot. The final item was payment for those elected to Parliament. Since it was an unpaid office, people who could not afford to go without a salary were practically shut out of running. Those who supported these measures came to be known as Chartists. The movement grew and garnered support. More than 1 million people signed a petition for the charter. Parliament, however, ignored the petition, but the movement continued to grow. It inspired newspapers, rallies, and even poetry. One poem published in 1841 included the lines, "'Tis the voice of the people I hear on high. It peals o'er the mountain, it soars to the sky. Its shock, like the earthquake, shall fill with dismay the hearts of the tyrants and sweep them away." Chartism as a movement lasted for 2 decades. But it was not until 1918 that all British men won the right to vote. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
It's over. Biden's numbers are in the ditch. Democrats are doomed, called the priest. These are Democrats talking. Even before November's congressional elections are run, many conventional-thinking Democratic operatives are surrendering to a presumed Republican sweep. You don't need a political science degree to know that if you start out announcing that you'll lose, chances are you will. After all, who wants to vote for a party that shows no fighting spirit, no confidence in the appeal of its own ideas? What's happening here is that the party's top leaders have decided their candidates can't win in rural areas and smaller factory cities, so they've quit trying. Worse, they blame the voters, claiming that Trumpism, Fox News BS, and culture war nonsense have poisoned the minds of people, quote, out there. Thus, party leaders have retreated from the countryside to focus entirely on big urban areas. Democratic congressional leaders even killed their rural outreach programs, and the party's chairman in 2018 meekly declared, "You can't door knock in rural America." Actually, sir, you can. And if you choose to abandon this working-class constituency, surprise, it will abandon you. Worse than failing to campaign along America's dirt roads and factory streets, national Democrats have actively been pushing corporate policies that have ravaged families living there, including trade scams sucking out union jobs, shamefully bailing out Wall Street bankers who crashed our real economy while ignoring millions of devastated workaday people, and doing nothing about the corporate-caused farm depression still ripping across our land. Washington Democrats have largely betrayed this vital constituency. This is Jim Hightower saying, did party poobahs think voters wouldn't notice or care how they're being treated? If we want them back on our side, then let's go to them and get back on their side.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So lots of fun and entertainment going on this political season. And No more favorite segment than I like when I reach out to our good friends over at Heartland Signal, as they keep us abreast of everything going on in the upper Midwest. And, some of my favorite stories coming out of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Ohio, the heartland of America, just as crazy as ever. And here to share some thoughts on, just how bad it is getting. I've asked Austin Linfante to come talk with us. He is the multimedia guru and reporter over there at Heartland Signal. You can check out the work that they do, heartlandsignal.com. They are also our radio partners over at WCPT AM 820 in Chicago. Austin, thanks for taking time for us.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Thank you for the kind words. I would think that this sort of segment would depress you, but I appreciate that you really enjoy it.
Look, if it's this bad, you've got to find some humor in when the ship is burning. And I look at Minnesota, for instance. You've got this Scott Jensen, who, we're coming out of the pandemic. We've got all this stuff going on. The people who we're supposed to look to for help and for hope, our physicians, our smart people, are doing dumb things. Why? Why are they doing dumb things, Austin?
Right. So Scott Jensen is actually Dr. Scott Jensen. He's a practicing family physician, and he's the endorsed candidate by the GOP party of Minnesota to be the next governor. They haven't had the election yet, but that's who they want. And he came out earlier, I believe last Sunday, that he's not vaccinated. He's openly not vaccinated as of right now, which is interesting because that's not a surprise for a lot of Republicans, but he's a doctor who's actively practicing medicine. People are coming to him with patients, and he's openly not vaccinated. And of course, he's trying to say like, "Oh, this was a hit piece, and I'll stand up for my freedoms and stuff." But it's still really interesting, even for him.
Yeah, you just shake your head sometimes at some of the justifications and the mental gymnastics that some of these folks jump through. In fact, speaking of mental gymnastics and fun, I look at Missouri. Let's go over there. You've got the Republican Senate candidate, this Eric Greitens, who I've heard a lot of things about the January 6th insurrection. I've heard a lot of justifications. I've heard, it's a patriotic day. People just, took a trip to D.C. It was like any other day. But this one I think is that next level kind of fun, because it was just grandparents. It was just Vietnam vets who, good God, looking to go. They're just looking to go potty. I guess the diapers weren't holding. Is that what I'm supposed to get?
Yep, that is pretty much what he said on conservative radio last week. Basically, like, these people, like, they shouldn't be jailed. These are grandparents, and the Capitol Police open the doors for them so they can use the restroom. And we're supposed to just believe that all the dozens, if not hundreds of videos don't counter that. It's honestly incredible. And like you said, Eric Greitens is one hell of a guy. Like, this is a guy who is the Missouri governor, but had to leave due to some major scandals, both with political finance and just how he's treated his family. And now it seems like every time he opens his mouth, he kind of digs himself into a deeper hole. But I didn't expect him to go this far.
Yeah, it's just look. I put this with the Barry Loudermilk thing. I didn't do it. I did nothing. Did nothing wrong. Well, okay, maybe I did it, but it wasn't illegal. Well, maybe it wasn't that great. Well, we were just looking at pictures. No, well, maybe there weren't any pictures, but but we didn't do anything wrong. It's just crazy the gymnastics that they go through to justify the criming and the things that they do. Nuts. Now let's go over to Michigan. Some of my favorite stuff coming out of Michigan. I remember the whole Acorn thing. I'm sure you may remember the conservatives have been twisting themselves into knots for years over the fact that Acorn was defrauded by people who were putting in false voter applications, and Acorn actually went to this and said, "Hey, look, these are false. You might want to check them out." Most conservatives I know use Acorn as a justification for any reason to break the law in the future, because look, someone else did it. Now, actually, you've got the Michigan Republican Party kind of going in that direction. And explain to folks what's going on in Michigan.
Right. So Kate Lee Johnson wrote a story last week, basically just kind of highlighting how there's multiple Midwest Republicans who are having trouble like getting legitimate signatures for their nominating petitions, and they're kind of submitting them with signatures that end up being falsified or erroneous in some way. So this happened in Wisconsin with Tim Michaels, but he survived that. But in Michigan, it's actually taking out a number of candidates, including one Perry Johnson and even former Detroit Police Chief James Craig, who was the frontrunner at the time. So it's gotten to the point of like they're submitting obviously bad signatures, and they're coming back, and it's actually kind of hurting them, like to the point where they can't run as a candidate. Like James Craig is going to try to do a write-in candidacy, but he's going to be severely limited on that front. And it's kind of just, yeah, like you said, like they'll talk about Acorn, then it has something that like is monstrously bad as this.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it and look, getting signatures is hard work. That's the reason that you do it. You got to get out in the public. You got to get some support. And it's interesting that it tells me one of two things. One, either they're really lazy and they didn't do the hard work of getting out and getting the signatures that they should be doing. Or two, maybe the popularity that we're led to believe isn't there. Maybe there just aren't people willing to put their name on it, so they had to open up the phone book or whatever and just start copying names down and start, well, breaking the law.
Yeah, or even a third option, which is that like these are the people who are running for higher office, some of the highest offices in the country, and they can't even get certain things right. They can't even get the absolute basics of like getting onto a ballot right, or just going out and talking to people, getting signatures. Like if you're supposed to do that, how are you supposed to do door-to-door canvassing? How are you supposed to respond to media? How are you supposed to run a campaign? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that would be the hybrid of my two. We could put those all together. But but here's the weird thing. I'm told that one of the candidates who are running for governor, who's kind of tied up in this and, in some of this, and I guess now in jail for some of his antics with the January 6th thing, he's actually leading in the polling. Am I getting that right?
You're talking about Ryan Kelly?
Yes.
Yeah, so basically... Well, he's been arrested. Yeah, the FBI arrested him, I believe last week, if not this week, just about over the fact that he was at January 6th. There are multiple photos of him at January 6th. And still not entirely sure whether he entered the Capitol or not. He's still trying to say, like, oh, this is where this is going to boost my campaign. They just handed me the win. But we're not even sure if he's going to be on the ballot. We're not sure if Gareth O'Donnell's going to be on the ballot. We're not sure Jared Dixon's going to be on the ballot. It's such a I can't say that word on radio.
It's such a show. It's such a show.
It's very much a show.
Let's go with that. It's a show.
It's a very fun show.
It's over there. It's a splat show. Let's go there.
Splat show.
Yeah, because but again, this is what these kind of folks bring to the table. I mean, it's crazy. And I looked at my state of Pennsylvania, and no worse of a show than in my state, where we've got the guy who looks like a thumb, who I've affectionately coined as Benito Mastriano, who we literally have a Nazi running for governor here in my state.
Yeah, it's absolutely bold. And to that point, it's just like, so this week he's hired Jenna Ellis, and this isn't much of a surprise. Jenna Ellis can't pay for him, but for context, Jenna Ellis was the senior legal advisor for Trump's re-election campaign, and in fact worked with Rudy Giuliani. In fact, probably was Rudy Giuliani's protege for crafting the big lie, crafting the whole thing that multiple states had stolen the election, which again was a huge lie. This has been verified over and over again, both by the states and by independent checkers. But now she's on that thing. She's on working for Mastriano, and it kind of seems like the next step because, like you said, just a flat out fascist running for governor and getting the nomination. This is probably the next step, just to, if he loses, and which he probably will. But if he loses, just like casting down immediately and not even accepting the results.
No, from your lips. I mean, the recent polling has Josh Shapiro, the Democrat, up, by a pretty good amount. But I would hope that Pennsylvania being what I'm still hoping is going to be a sane state, that it would have been double the 7% at least, because of just how extreme Mastriano has been. His policies are extraordinarily extreme, and I'm hoping the more people hear about Benito, the more that they turn away. Just my thought. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're here with Austin Linfante. Austin is the multimedia guru and reporter over at Heartland Signal, heartlandsignal.com, the website. You might want to check that out. Great stuff, good reporting. Keep you up to date on all the fun, insanity, and, well, just laughable nonsense coming out of our friends in the GOP. I got to get over to Ohio because this is deadly serious stuff here. I look at, they just passed and signed, Mike DeWine, the governor, there's just signed into law, this bill going to allow teachers to start packing heat. The lunch lady's going to put down the ladle and pick up a 9. Thoughts? I'm thinking about this going, this is a really bad idea. We should be doing a whole lot of other stuff, but I'm curious, where are you at?
Well, it's extremely bad. Mainly, for the first thing, you need more hours to be a certified teacher than you need to be a certified to go in armed in one of these schools. To go in one of these schools now, it went from 700 hours to 24. Even like back in the day, Mike DeWine said you need at least 150, and he's gone back down on that. And probably the most telling thing that they just want to pass this for the sake of passing it was that at a press conference, one reporter asked, like, "Hey, remember the 2019 Dayton shootings? When people said do something, and does this kind of qualify as doing something?" And he just flat out said, "I don't know." Like very much wasn't like he didn't even think about it. It was like, "I don't know. I just create stuff. I just put plans out and see if it works."
Yeah, it's the spaghetti theory. But this is the problem that I have with this is, we look at what happened at Parkland. We look at what happened in Uvalde. There were certified, trained, active shooter trained people standing outside those schools. These are people who are heavily trained. These are their careers. These are people who are heavily trained in firearms. These are the people that we rely on, and they didn't react in the moment. What makes you think the lunch lady is going to put the ladle down? What makes you think the kindergarten teacher is going to put down the very hungry caterpillar to pick up a 9, to go out into taking on somebody with an AR-15? And then what's going to happen the first time there's an honest accident? A gun is dropped, a kid gets a hold of it by accident, and someone gets hurt. There's nothing good in this as far as I can tell.
Yeah, and I can't name a single way, or I can't name a single incident where a school resource officer has properly stopped one of these shootings. But what they have done is assault students who just and kind of escalate things. So putting guns into teachers' hands is probably going to be a lot worse, and those mistakes are going to be way more common than they are.
Yeah.
Well, you never even heard of them right now.
Yeah, I mean, as dumb as Ted Cruz's idea was of one door, that's still a better idea than this. Retrofitting every school to have one door. No windows, just one door. That's still a better idea than this. And that's saying something when I can give Ted Cruz the credit to have a better idea than any of the others.
Yeah, at least Ted Cruz's idea won't kill probably dozens of students in the near future.
Well, the one door thing, if there's ever you need to evacuate, well, you probably could kill a bunch of people because nobody's getting out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right.
Again, my problem with all of this, and this comes back to one of the core things that I live my life by. If you're going to come to a solution to fix a problem, make sure that solution doesn't cause even more problems than the thing you're trying to fix. And it seems like everything that our friends on the Republican side and some Democrats do, it just makes things worse because we're simply not talking about the real problem. And it's access to these weapons of war. This is the problem, but we evidently can't talk about that.
Yeah, and I think it goes for saying, but like the Democratic nominee for governor who's facing DeWine, Nan Whaley, just flat out said at a presser after this was signed, and she has a right to be upset. She was mayor of Dayton at the time when that mass shooting happened. She said, "We don't give that Mike DeWine, he doesn't give a splat about whether you or your family are safe."
Yeah. It's crazy. Now let's go over to Wisconsin because Wisconsin's kind of my favorite place right now. Because the senator there has kind of just come full out and said it. Doesn't care about the working people of Wisconsin. Was asked, I guess, during a teletown hall meeting about making things in Wisconsin and in the United States, about outsourcing, and he had a very blunt, very callous kind of response, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. And if he thought the Oshkosh Corp thing was bad enough where he kind of just let thousands of jobs go to a non-union state, And this is way worse. One person on this Telethon Hall asked, or was saying, more products should be made in America. And Ron Johnson comes back and is like, whoa, slow your roll. I think only some high stuff come back, but we don't need to bring everything back. Basically saying, like, outsourcing is working in some cases, and tried to explain some macroeconomics to him. But the bottom line was that he was justifying it and basically saying, like, outsourcing works, and it doesn't make sense to bring back a bunch of people. So that has gone over just as well as you expect, especially in a state like Wisconsin.
As it should. It should go over like a lead balloon, and this should be one of those things that every person hears. For me, this is the most important story of all of them, because this is to the heart of what working people need to hear. The Republican Party is not the party of working people. They're really trying to make that pivot to say, look, we care about your working class values. We care about your plight. They're using the inflation, or what I'm calling price gouging, to their advantage, but they've got no solutions, no ideas, no way of helping other than the same old failed policies that got us in the mess we're in. So when I hear Ron Johnson say this, I'm going, there's no hope or change here. There's no opportunity to make things different. You're just going to get more of the same with Johnson and the current party. There's no surprise here.
Yeah, absolutely no surprise. And this guy is essentially like the monopoly guy. He's bragged. He said, like, "Oh, I only doubled my worth while in Senate," or just yeah, they only and like kind of it's like I only I try to live modestly with my multiple houses, and it's just awful.
I try to live modestly on my $175,000 a year plus the millions I have socked away. But hey, you minimum wage workers, tighten your belt straps.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much what he's saying right here. And I've never seen anyone so blatantly on either side just be so blatantly anti-labor and just anti-American worker in general.
But for me, again, this is another one of those moments where when they tell you who they are, listen. It's that simple. Yeah. It's that simple. But Austin, I appreciate the time. I appreciate the work you guys do there at Heartland Signal. I hope folks will take a look at the website, heartlandsignal.com. We'll get links out on social media how you can check it out. Just click on Austin's name, take you right there. Austin, man, great talking with you. I hope you'll come back again real soon.
Of course. Love being here. Thank you.
Our good friend Austin Linfante. Again, make sure you check out their work, heartlandsignal.com. That's where you go. That's where you get the information, the 411, the skinny, all of that. Can you believe it? No, we don't need no stinking jobs. We don't need to bring back any manufacturing. Let it be done over in China. Yeah, that's the ticket. You believe that? Quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk. Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute. Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Check out our website, thericksmithshow.com. Just got a funny message. Lauren Boebert, gun fetish Barbie. The funny thing about Boebert, and look, this is one of those things that I don't like to beat up on Lauren Boebert too much, although she needs it. And I'm not going to say anything about, whatever the allegations are about her and whatever it is she may have done or may have not have done or whatever. But, recently, she came out and said that, the left Twitter trolls like to say, what, would Jesus need a gun? And she said, well, Jesus' government, wouldn't have killed him if he had a gun. And I think she misses, and the Twitter sphere, kind of did try to educate her on her religion. And this is the weird part about this, because they're supposed to be the ones who know their religion. But the reason Jesus was sent was to die for our sins, and this was the whole pre-planned thing, supposedly, is what we're told. So had he gone, packing a Mac 90 or something, and taking out Pontius Pilate and everything, it would have kind of changed the whole. I don't know, the whole book. It would have had a much different flavor to the book, I think, which is what I think these folks want. How weird that is. But there's kind of a weird, undertone going on with this kind of pushback. And for a moment, I thought it was just Boebert. But a listener sent me a picture that they took in Florida of a car that was in front of them that said, if Jesus had a gun, he'd be alive today. Well, I don't know about that. I mean, he'd be really old, for one. I think, but wouldn't it have changed the whole story? That whole turn the cheek thing? Or am I missing something on the current state of religion in America? I've been joking for years that there are people in the religion sect who want to return to an ideology of a heat packing Jesus, a Rambo Jesus, if you will. Oh, geez. Let's get to a couple of quick emails to wrap things up today. Bonnie, listening on WAUK 540 AM 101.1 FM, The Shaw. Taking me to task, Bonnie. Rick, I cannot believe you gave that crackpot Gordon, whatever his name is, any time to spew his nonsense. I remember the Terry Schiavo situation. It's disgraceful. He's still living off her name and the pain of her family. Do us all a favor and never have him back on the show. I love you, but you made me so angry. I had to turn you off for a while. Please don't do it again. Bonnie, look, it's open lines. People call in. I take the calls as they come in. I do agree with him on the student loan stuff. This is where I think we do have to talk with conservatives, as crazy as they can be. There are things that we need to get accomplished, doing something on student loan debts, doing something on educating the future of our country and our kids, and I think is somewhere where we can begin. And then hopefully there's a way of bringing people back to somewhere near sanity. I'm not saying we're bringing everybody back. We're not going to be able to bring everyone. I'm not saying I'm Noah and I've got an ark where we're going to bring everybody along, but 2 by 2, we might be able to save democracy and save some sanity. So look, people call, we're going to have conversations. That's where I'm at. But if you noticed, when he was going into that, I did cut him off at the end because I don't want to get into that either. I'm with you on the, I find it disgraceful what happened in that situation. And all these years later, I mean, to still be doing that, I'm with you. So I appreciate the email. Thank you. But phone lines open. That simple. Matt, listening to WCPT AM 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk, asks why Barry Loudermilk is still not being locked up. Why is he not stripped of his position? How is he still in Congress collecting a paycheck? Good question, Matt. I would like to know why he's not been fitted with nice shiny bracelets, especially since he lied. Now, hopefully the FBI did question him, and hopefully he lied to the FBI, because that's how you usually end up getting fitted for a new outfit, usually pinstripes or orange, and some shiny new bracelets. It's disgraceful. It is, what we were kind of expecting. Somebody was going to be the one who was going to be giving the tours. I wouldn't have picked Loudermilk. I thought it was going to be the Boeberts or the Greens or one of the more bombastic ones. Not the Jim Jordans. I think he's smarter than that. But the GED crowd, the Boeberts. I thought for sure it was going to be her, and it still may be, because evidently a relative did tweet out that they had taken a tour. There's still some possibility. I don't know. There's still a lot of hearing to go. And as we found out today, a lot of stuff went on. So yeah, we got lots of fun on the horizon. But there you go. Appreciate the emails. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I do answer all emails personally, and sometimes we get to them on the program here. I appreciate it. If you miss any of the program, make sure you download the podcast there at the website or wherever you get your podcasts, from iTunes to iHeart, Podbean, Stitcher, all of those places, everywhere you get your podcasts, it's probably there. And if it's not, let me know. We'll make sure it gets there. I appreciate you being here. Appreciate you taking time to tune in. Thanks so much. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.